So if you're ever wondering, how do you research your various stocks that you may be interested in? And do you have to spend literally hundreds of dollars a month on subscriptions to various newspapers so that you can find out what is going on with these companies? The answer is absolutely not. In fact, I have 4 databases that are absolutely free that you can survey and search through for that company and find any information that you want for the last year, for the last 20 years. And so very quickly you can scan through the results, and that's the key here. Can you scan through this very, very rapidly and make a decision on the stock and its viability? So I'm going to show you how you get this database, how you access it absolutely free. There's no cost involved at all. And in fact, it is the resources available through this, besides these 4 databases, are just phenomenal. So join me on the desktop and I'll lead you through step by step how you access these databases. All right, so let's take a look at some of the research that you can do. So one way to find out if your library system has these various tools is to go ahead and do a search very similar to the one that I've just shown set up over here, where I'm searching for library system, and then I put my county in. And then there are a couple of the databases that you can search for. One of them is EBSCO host, and you can immediately see it coming up, giving you a guide to the electronic sources in your various library systems. So we can take a look at this Reddit article here, and it talks about the various resources that are available. So very easy to find out if your library has these resources. I'll just do a search for Proquest, which is another one of the databases we're going to use, and you can see it comes up here. So the other thing is, if you're not a member of the library system or don't live in that particular state, what you can do is do a search for your county that you're interested in, library and non-residents, and then you'll get a bunch of information about the fees, and they're typically in the $40 range, and that should take care of that one. So let's go into the Fulton County Library System right here at its sort of beginning. Let's log in, and well, just before we log in, let's look at signing up for the library, and that's really quite a simple process to get through. So Fulton County Library sign up, and there you can see library card sign up, and the process is pretty much the same for a lot of these libraries. And so what you can do is you can get a temporary library card issued, and then you need to physically go in and to your local library, show them your ID that they can confirm, and they turn it into a full-time. Note that the ID does change, the actual card number that they give you does change when they make it permanent. But this is really all that you fill in. You have an email address, you have a PIN number, you select your closest library, and from this you can actually begin using the catalog right away. As I say, you have it for 30 days, then you need to go by and get it turned into a permanent card. So let's log in and start taking a look at the various databases that we want to use. So I'm just going to log into my particular account at this point. And once you're logged in, you'll have a different experience, although a lot of them use a very common sort of user interface. And the thing that we're going to go down here is to databases and e-resources, and we'll open this one up. And now you get a listing in sort of alphabetical order of these. And the first one we're going to look at is this America's newspapers, which is probably a good starting point. And here I put in my particular library card, and it gets you signed in so that you can use the application. And now you get the search screen here, which is quite useful. And I'm doing some research on Qualcomm, and we'll go in and we'll search what Qualcomm has over here. And so you begin to see the articles. This is Associated Press News, and what it's doing is it's doing it in sorting by newest. The first thing that I like to do is move this up to a much more current time frame. Say 2020, and we'll apply that. And then you get the sort of more narrow view, and I'm going to come in and do probably a 6-month period, something like that. And so this is in order of newest, but sometimes toggling to best match gives you a interesting view too. And so you begin to look at some of the latest news and just easily glance through it. I really like this preview feature because it means that you don't really have to go into the document, or you can view the document and just click on it. I don't like to do that because I like to open up the article in a new tab. And there we go. And so the interesting thing here, although this is PR Newswire, is it gives it to you in the standard interface, and you don't actually go across to that particular news article, so you don't need to log in or anything like this. This happens to be from Newswire, but let's look for a couple more articles here. So a lot of releases, and you can just scan through this and very quickly get a flavor for some of the things coming out of Qualcomm in this particular case. Now, a couple of other things worth noting is you can toggle this to look at the magazines only that are talking about Qualcomm. You get really a different perspective. So there you get Popular Science talking about it, why you want Qualcomm Snapdragon inside your next phone. So again, let's open this up, and I'll show you that it's not actually going to the Popular Science journal, but what it's doing is it's just showing you the text of the article, which I find really useful because you can very quickly read it. The other thing you can do is you can play it so that it reads it to you, and we'll quickly run that.
Why you want Qualcomm's new Snapdragon chip inside your next phone. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 has built-in 5 grams connectivity and serious photography chops. It's easy to buy a smartphone, even a powerful flagship device.
Okay, so we close the player. So that's interesting. And as I said, if you can toggle the source type, what you do to get it back is you exit, and then it'll show you all of them again. And we can get the newspaper articles. So it's really useful to play with these dates, so we can say, okay, let's see everything from March to April, and let's go in and look at all the newspaper articles. This gives us an idea of some of the newspapers that are tracking them. Obviously, Qualcomm is in San Diego, so that you can see some heavy tracking there and some heavy news coming out of them. So, I mean, that's an interesting article. Qualcomm Ventures backs for startups, and you can get that information. So that's the first resource, which is known as Newsbank. Let's come back again, and we can quickly scan through and look for some of the others. Now, here's another one which is super interesting. Now, it says Consumer Reports magazine, which obviously may not have a whole lot of relevance to what we're doing over for Qualcomm. It may indeed, when you're researching other stocks, have some consumer relevance. But let's open this up in another tab and take a look at this. Now, the access for Galileo is done as follows, and let me just show you how you get to that. So if you look inside your mail application of your library app, you'll see that you'll get a password for Galileo, and this is changed sort of on a monthly basis. So everyone gets the same password, and let's put that in, and then we can log in. And so a lot of the databases are run out of Galileo and the Galileo system. And so here you're beginning to see, sort of all the Consumer Reports sort of magazines that have been issued. So let's go and look at sort of the January 1 issue. I'm not sure why they're able to publish all the way up into June right now. And so, you can go ahead and read and review the full text. And just for the heck of it, let's go and look at one of them. Looks like this is one on humidifiers. So we go look at the full, the PDF full text of the article. And there you get the Consumer Reports, which you can look through, which is quite useful. So let's come back now and see where we can use this for a more general report. And this is the search within what's called EBSCO host. And here the journal is Consumer Reports, but let's say we wanted to search through all databases, and again for Qualcomm. And you could use Qualcomm Incorporated, but we'll just use Qualcomm as is and run that search. And now you start getting, a whole lot of places like Newsweek, which has America's most responsible Qualcomm's Snapdragon discussion in Macworld. So let's right-click on that and dive into that article. And you can then go ahead and review what that discussion is. Again, whether you want to read the whole article or just glance through the headlines, you quickly get a flavor for what's going on with Qualcomm. But the interesting thing here is the kinds of magazines that are talking about this, and PC World, for example, talking a lot about Qualcomm and their processors. And so you get eWeek, Electronics Weekly, so on and so forth. So I think that's really quite interesting. You can see the date there is 2020. And again, similar sort of thing in that you've got your time frame there. You can restrict this to newspapers and magazines and books and so on and so forth. So that's the next resource and how you sort of get into it. And we'll now look at a couple more that we've got in our database over here. And the next one we're looking for is Proquest. So let's look at Proquest coming up shortly. This is probably one of the best databases in my opinion. And again, put your Galileo password in, click go on that one, and again we'll do the same search on Qualcomm, and this is by relevance, and I like to go to the last 12 months, but again you could see a much broader set of newspapers. Here's the Financial Times in London coming up, and you can select newspapers, magazines, or trade journals. And so let's go to trade journals and see what's coming up. And let's go and sort this time by most recent first. And so you see the San Diego Business Journal being reported here. Lots of news coming out of there. And Financial Times, Nvidia's takeover of ARM faces deeper US competition probe, February 13th. So again, scanning through this, you've got a whole lot of information that you can go through and really get a flavor for the stock and what's impacting it. Often I find that when you do a valuation and you do an analysis of a stock, you've really got to go and look at some of the more detailed news articles that are being reported out of it, because that really gives you a sense for why there might be discrepancies between price and value. And then finally, let's come on to our final database that I wanted to show you, which is called World News Digest. And so the World News Digest, we'll open that one up. And this one really has got a history going back in the 1940s, 1950s, and has got an interesting synopsis on sort of today's news, which is also useful for kind of looking through. And but let's have a look at how Qualcomm comes into play over here. And again, you can see you can filter by date. So we can do the past 2 weeks and apply that. Not much coming up there. Let's go to the past year, which is probably more sensible. And so again, news articles, Reuters, should I say. And again, giving you a flavor for some of that news. Now, what I like in this one is if you go to editorials, you get some of the sort of background, Investor Business Daily in particular, talking here about the stock and what they think is going on with that price. So, for example, at the very top, is Qualcomm stock a buy as global chip shortage expands, which is really the hypothesis around this particular stock. So I think that covers all the news articles. I just wanted to cover through and point to you a couple of other interesting. You've got Value Line, which is now available through Galileo, which is also very useful to you. So we'll just let that load up, and in Value Line you can do screenings, but we can also search for Qualcomm over here and get the research that's been done on Qualcomm. And the research coming out of Value Line is really powerful and has got a ton of stuff that's all there at your fingertips that you can use. There are a couple of other interesting databases that you might find useful as you're doing your research, and we covered Proquest earlier, and I'm going backwards here in the alphabet, but we should come to Morningstar, which is right here. And going into Morningstar, you can again get another perspective of the research and put Qualcomm on in, and you get all the background from a Morningstar perspective. Keep your eye over here if it goes blank, because it's busy pulling that data out for you. And so here we go on Qualcomm and the analysis that they've done. I also like to do screening, but unfortunately the screening is not working through my library system. So I have a question in to the support on that one. And then I think there's one more that I want to do cover off. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it's Data Axle, and let's quickly take a look at what Data Axle does. I'll go into some of these in greater detail in separate videos, but if we again dive in and give it our card number, and so now we're in the Data Axle tool, and we can do a search here. And so you can see all the, what's nice about this is you get to see a bunch of the subsidiaries and the corporate tree structure, and you can see sort of the ownership. And then there are some financial details here that is quite interesting, and it sort of gives you a view of the job listings that Qualcomm have at the moment, the SIC codes that they're using, a little bit on the business profile, and some other details about the corporation that you might find useful. You get some names of some of the management and leadership team, and this is quite exhaustive. It's probably one of the most exhaustive lists I've found. And then what you could do here is go in and look if any of these guys are sending out any Twitter communications, maybe get some views of the company from that perspective. But you can see here you're getting quite a extensive list of people, and you can also load company news from here and just get a quick read on the company. The nice thing about this data source, Data Axle, which used to be called Reference USA, is that it applies also to private companies. So you get a whole lot of private company detail. And so here you've got some of the companies that they own, but you could get just your local company up the road, get some financial detail on them, such as sales volume, which may be interesting. I'll make another video on how to use this because it's pretty handy in doing a valuation of some of the smaller private companies that you may be interested in for whatever reason. So that ends the various resources that are absolutely free of charge through your library system, and hopefully you found this video useful, and please hit the subscribe button as I'll be updating this and sending some more info on how to use these databases. Thank you very much. So I hope you enjoyed that and got something useful out of it. I use these databases all the time, and I find it a phenomenal resource. So hopefully you found this video useful, and if you want to see more of these types of videos, please hit the subscribe button just below.